Whoa! Hey, our shirts kind of complement.
They do, actually.
I've had
They
pretty
go
good
really well
color
together.
matching.
Yeah.
The last interview I did was with Southpaw. We were just live a couple minutes ago, and we were wearing almost matching colors, so it works great. But this
Awesome.
is we're Christmas. We're Christmas color.
100%. 100%. That looks great. That looks great.
I'm here with Joe Oakes, the Joe. Is it Joseph or just Joe?
Just Joe.
Just Joe.
Just Joe.
Dang, just like me. A lot of people say Jonathan. I'm like, no, just John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I answer to quite a bit, but just Joe.
just Joe. Yeah. And Joe, I think, is teaching the most classes I think I've seen at a ReaperCon
Quite a bit this year. Quite a bit.
on the whole weekend.
Yeah. So we started out really strong with Thursday and 9 a.m. classes all the way through to night owl classes.
All day.
So we had a couple of breaks in there.
Yeah. Lunch
but
and stuff.
we wanted to make sure that we're maximizing opportunities for people. So much gets put in the mornings.
Yes.
And I've found from just past ReaperCons, night owl classes, for a lot of people, it's a great avenue for them to continue to paint, but have fun,
Yeah.
where they're not worried about rushing to events from class to class, the whole 9 yards. So we tried to give a good spread throughout the day, Thursday, Friday, and then this morning. So yeah, quite a few, but we enjoy it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, the hobby aspect of it, this is a way for me to give back.
Yeah. And I just thought about it. If you do the night owl classes, because they're not as, I wouldn't say they're not popular. It's just that I guess the teachers don't want to do night classes.
Night
It's
classes
just
can
not
be
very common.
challenging.
Yeah.
So especially from a teacher perspective, right? Most of the time when you're working in your classes during the day, you're covering a lot of, really essential material. And by the end of the day, it's hard to stay focused.
You're kind of tired and
100%.
you've been focused all day.
Yes. And so there is an element of it where it makes for a long, long day. That's why the breaks in between are very essential.
Yeah.
But the night owl classes, as we've found, initially when we were looking and discussing night owls, there was more of an aspect of, are they going to be popular or not? And I found the past 3 ReaperCons, the night owl classes are some of the first ones that fill up for me.
Nice.
So it's turned into for me, a must-have. I love doing the night owls.
Yeah. Especially, are they like squished close together, or are there big breaks in between the night owl classes? Like, let's say you start at 6 and it goes till 6 or 7:30, 8.
Yeah, so definitely we want to have a little bit, about a half an hour minimum break. So then when the night owl classes start at 9, generally all of the
at
night
9.
owls will start at 9. And it gives you a good opportunity. People have had a chance to go and eat. They've been able to wander around and check out Artist Alley, or sit down and do some of the practice painting from the classes they've learned. And it's a reinvigorated aspect. They come into the class like kind of raring to go.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. And so far the adoption rate of it, when we're asking for feedback at the end of the class, people are like really reinvigorated from the early wear, all the aspects.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I guess that they can spend the day doing stuff like around the con and doing all the normal stuff, collecting Reaper bucks and things like that.
Ribbons.
And then and ribbons, and then go to the night class, the night owl classes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, let's say you start at 9, and you don't have a class after that, right? You're just teaching one night owl class.
Correct.
Then you can kind of meander a little bit. Like, you can go slower.
Yes.
You can stay late.
Yes.
Like, you're not rushed by another class that's coming in right behind you.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about the tear down and reset.
Yeah.
So it really is an open format.
Yeah.
And that's where we found a lot of the people that they're taking that, there's an aspect of that where there isn't a big rush. They don't have to go to something else. There's nothing else beyond that.
They've already had dinner.
Pace-wise, they can go as slow or as fast as they want.
Yeah.
So there's an aspect where there's this class here, this night owl class, even though sometimes subject-wise we approach it very seriously, but there's a relaxed atmosphere to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
it's
you can
really
you
good.
can kind of get some more one-on-one, like go to their table and help them, or and like show them up close and
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
Answer probably a lot more questions as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I heard your lovely wife was talking to me earlier, and she mentioned to me something about not having a TV in that classroom, and I was like, I can go find a TV right now. I didn't know that there was not one in there because I'm not in charge of like class setup. So
Yes. Yes.
so I will get you a TV.
Well,
Next
no
year.
big, yeah. Go forward, great. That's great. We pivoted quickly on a dime, and generally, most classes anyhow, you want to be able to paint and show the aspect, and then have the class take that step. A lot of the times we bring handouts anyhow for reference materials. There's aspects that you can practice in class, but then 3 days later, are you going to remember some of those elements? So having those handout materials, a lot of the aspects that we were projecting and talking about live, we can go right into the reference materials.
Oh yeah, turn to page 3. Paragraph 2.
So it hasn't been a hindrance at all. We've just learned to do the quick adapt. And as we're going through and talking about processes or anything, it actually has given a little bit more because we'll go and do a little quick example, obviously, on the thumb or on the class miniature, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And it's actually helped be a little bit more direct.
I mean, it sounds lovely, to be honest. Kind of sounds like a relaxed paint club almost.
Yes,
But,
very much.
but
Very
with
much.
targeted classes.
Yes, very much.
And I guess
very
if you teach a class in the morning or in the afternoon, you're like, oh, that's a popular class. And it fills out really immediately. Then you're
Very
like, I can
quick.
teach it at night too.
Very much.
To
very
get those
much.
people that missed out and things like that. So.
And even blending some of the elements, some of the classes that are focused on aspects like eyes is a very popular one.
Yes.
It's a challenging subject and it's a very focused subject. But also painting faces, having expression in your faces, flesh and skin highlights, hair, those are all great individual aspects. But for night class, you can almost do a recap. So we have one that we call face to face, and we cover all of those aspects just at a lighter touch. So you're still talking about eyes, flesh, hair, hitting all those important elements, but in a wider stance.
Kind of like almost as a whole composition, kind of like a
100%.
in totality review.
Yes. And we try to make it fun, so we generally use in the night out classes, chibis are one of the best
Oh yeah,
things
for
to
faces
use.
and eyes.
Yes, because it's such a big palette, it gives a lot of opportunity to play around too, and go outside, try different techniques, try something different.
Yeah.
And again, people seem to really enjoy those.
Yeah, they're enlarged. They're good for that. I know that Jeff Davis, he teaches a class on eyes, and he
Fantastic.
uses the gibbering mouther, the flesh monster with all the eyes on it.
Yes.
Because you can just practice all the different techniques
Yes.
on it. And so I found that to be a really cool model to choose.
100%. That actually, so I'm not afraid to say that the inspiration that I've gotten from the classes I've taken have led to a lot of the aspects. So for my eye class, I rotate back and forth between either the eye beast or a 3-pack of zombies. Because
You get 6
if
eyes.
you mess up, you've got multiple eyes that you can keep practicing on, and it's monstrous, so they don't have to be perfect.
Yeah,
A zombie with perfect eyes may be a problem.
that's true.
So-
oh yeah, yeah, true.
Yeah, some of the aspects like that, where from just the classes that I've taken, being able to adapt and take some of those concepts, there again, it's about passing on and sharing those aspects.
Yeah, so you joined ReaperCon, I want to say, I don't know, 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
4. Okay.
But the
I was in the ballpark.
5 years ago, we attended, but it was just for a day. And it was scheduling aspects.
Okay.
So prior to, initially it was Memorial Day weekend. And for me to be able to carve out that time was a challenge. Then when it moved to Labor Day weekend, I actually had worked to adjust everything to where we could do Memorial Day weekend. It moved to Labor Day weekend, so I was off schedule for a little bit longer. But yeah, then 5 years ago, we were actually finally able to make it just for the weekend aspect. And I said, yeah, 100%. We need to be able to make this a standard every year.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy having you here, me personally. I talk to Joe almost every year.
Yeah.
You're one of my favorite people to talk to on Artist Alley. And people you like Carrie Michael Cosby, who's in chat, who obviously is not
Carrie,
here.
Hello.
She got sick, or
Yes.
her family got sick.
I hope everybody's feeling better and a quick, speedy recovery for sure. It was so sad to see so close to ReaperCon, but that's the elements of life.
Yeah, Quindy got sick as well. And she's getting better, but hopefully everybody recovers, and we'll see you next year.
Yes.
We're still here for one more year at this hotel and at this location, and I think at this time of year, I believe, but we don't know what's going to happen after that. There's
Wait
a lot
and
of
see.
we're talking. There's a lot of murmuring about if we want to move it, what time of year, like if it should change. I don't know. I put out a survey to all the attendees with a few questions like that, like, do you like this time of year? If not, what time of the year would you like to see it? Kind of a thing. And questions like, how long, like the length of ReaperCon, is it too short? Is it just right? Personally, I think it's just right. Because of the Labor Day weekend, people are like, why don't you do more on Sunday? And it's like, well, it ends, basically the MSP Open tonight is basically the finale of ReaperCon.
Yes.
And, I've kind of wanted to do some bigger stuff on Sundays in years past, but it just doesn't feel right because the vibes are, everybody's checked out,
yes.
and you're ready to like pack up, and you're ready to go home. It's a travel day.
Yes.
You're either driving or you're flying. You're shipping your stuff. And then you get all of Monday to kind of recover before you go back to work.
The vacation from vacation,
And
I call it.
It's super nice because you get to unpack. You get to like unwind, I guess, from the con crud, from all the lack of sleep, and the walking around, and you get to recharge your social battery before you go back to work.
Yeah, you need that downtime just to get back up. So
Labor Day weekend is a good. Is it Labor Day weekend? Yeah, we're Labor Day weekend. Yeah.
Yep.
I get that, and Memorial Day mixed up. But I think it's just a good time. I just don't know what other time we could do it, like spring break but everybody's spring breaks are different. I don't know.
That's one of the things is you can't please everybody all the time. So there's no one solution that's going to make everybody happy. But what works the best for the broadest
the majority?
Aspect. Yeah.
I know a lot of teachers have a hard time with Labor Day because of school starting. For a lot of places across the U.S. are starting generally like last week. I think might have been the first week of school on average. So it's really hard to get off. Like you can't tell your principal or your college or whatever, like, oh, I got this mini convention to go to.
Yes.
The first week of school. So that's some of the questions I've been asking and things like that. And I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about classroom structure.
Yes.
Because we've been talking internally at Reaper. I'm being super candid right now. And we went to Adepticon this past year as Reaper. We had a booth and all that stuff. And I've been like kind of gathering information from other conventions and how other conventions do classes and the teacher structure and things like that. And because I don't really go to conventions and things like that, but as going to the booth and things like that, I'm kind of getting a perspective. And so this year. We've been talking for a couple of years about night owl classes, and we were trying to get more.
Yes.
And we were offering an incentive for the teachers. Like, if you teach 4 classes, and then every class after that one, if it's a nighttime class, or like let's say 5 onward, you'll get half of the revenue from all the tickets. Kind of a reimbursement thing. Because I think do you teach at other conventions and things like that?
I do. One of the big aspects that I try to do is, with ReaperCon specifically, it's again one of those aspects where the focus is very different.
Yeah.
But the kind of structure is very similar as far as the convention aspect of it.
Yeah. Like the timing of the classes and how the classes work and things like that.
Yes.
But the reimbursement the incentives are different, I think.
Yeah, very much so.
Because we do a kind of a per diem. It's not really that, but it's like a credit. Like
Yes.
if you teach 4 classes, you get this amount of, you get travel credit and things like that, and hotel block and yada yada yada, artist alley block, things like that. But other conventions, I think they do some kind of revenue split with the tickets and the things like that.
Yeah, you're very incentivized to
Teach more classes.
teach more classes and to sell more,
Yeah.
which has its pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
One of the aspects that other conventions, there is an aspect of you want to push and sell more classes, and you want to maximize the impact that you have in classroom time. Here, there is, especially when it comes into the night aspect, there is that aspect, but the pressure to push your sales
Is off
Is
a little
off.
bit because
Yes,
you don't
yes,
have to worry
yes.
about that because
Right.
you're not covered, but you have a good portion of everything kind of taken care of.
Yes.
I
yes.
see.
Yeah.
That's a good perspective.
Now, some of the variances, in my opinion, and this is all just my own opinion.
Yeah.
But for me, one of the big differentiators, again, is the focus on the community standard. I mean, ReaperCon is for the hobby.
Yeah.
It's for the people of the hobby. And so for me, the incentive is that community aspect. And I think that's one of the things that why I love doing so much as far as like classwork and everything, because when you're seeing the people excel and
Oh yeah.
enter MSP,
I'm sure it's nice when you have students and they're like, oh, I got a bronze last year, and then they come to a couple of your classes, and then you're like, how'd you do?
the next year they're getting a silver.
Silver,
Right.
yeah.
Those types of aspects are really great. It's not. It doesn't seem quite as competitive.
Yeah, it's not.
Of an aspect.
I've been talking about this. Yeah.
And that's true with the teachers as well. As you go through Artist Alley and everything, I mean, we're all very, very close in community. We all have the same passions, the same desires.
You're not like, I got more
It's
students
not a
than you did.
competitive aspect.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Which I love, especially being a teacher in a format where we're all kind of competitors. We
Yeah.
all want to have our aspects viewed and all of that.
That's
but
true.
It's a community aspect. We can go
Yeah.
and talk to each other about what we're working on, what we're doing,
Yeah.
and share knowledge. It doesn't get as banded or siloed
Or I'm gonna keep my knowledge
to myself.
to myself so I can sell it.
So I'm the only one who can
Exactly.
do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it. Makes sense. And so that's the kind of the other flip side of the if you're going to do the revenue kind of splitting aspect of it, because then you're just in like all about pushing that part of it. I see.
So it does. It has for the class aspect. It does have that variance in that many of the techniques that I've learned on my painting journey as I've been growing, moving from 2D art to 3D art is a step in and of itself. Being able to utilize the things that I've been taught and that I've learned and picked up on, and share that out beyond myself it's a great reward. And I think any of the artists on there would say the same thing.
Yeah. How long have you been painting?
So the first miniature I ever painted was in 1984.
Okay.
When I started professionally painting, it was 2000.
Okay.
So going on 24 years, we'll say 14. But quite a while.
Yeah. As a professional,
As a professional, yeah.
I'd say. Nice. That was 6 years before I was born, and 10 years after. So.
Yes.
You've been painting older than me.
One of the things that I love, and there are highs and lows on that too. Of course, as a dad and a granddad and everything, there are times where it was more or less focused.
Yeah.
Now I'm an empty nester,
Okay.
so there's so much more focus.
Hobby time.
on that hobby time, and so I'm in the lucky aspect of I don't have a lot of other responsibilities with kids and things like that. So
You made it over that hill.
yes.
So, I mean, that sounds great. And so, I was going to ask something about the questions, but I forgot. It's kind of hard with the audience here. I get distracted a little bit.
It's easy to do. There's so much motion. There's so
Yeah.
much going on, and the vibe. I mean,
Oh, I
you
got
can't
it.
help but pick up on the vibe.
Yeah, and today I was talking to our technical director Frank Schumacher Neidhart, and earlier today there just seemed like there was a lot of people in here. Like there was a ton of people in Artist Alley for a second. There was a lot of people in the main hall. There was like people juggling in the back.
Yes.
The Hobby Hijinks was full, and it all of a sudden this morning it just felt like boom, this place was full. And I saw somebody earlier say that attendance looks down, and honestly, it's about the same as last year. We do have a lot of new people. I've seen a lot of newbie ribbons going around, but a lot of the locals show up on Saturday.
Yes.
So they have kids, they're in school, they have work. So either they show up on Friday night or they come in on Saturday morning. So that's normally about 200 to 400 locals. So the attendance numbers, just if you're just looking at the numbers, is about the same as last year.
I would agree with that just from what I've observed. If you look at like the gaming tables,
Oh, there's a lot more gaming this year.
last year there was a lot less gaming.
Yes, yeah.
This year those gaming tables have
been full.
chock full.
Yeah.
So part of the aspect too is in where the people are at.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
But attendance wise, yeah, I would say it's right on par with last year.
Yeah, I agree. It's either like right at it or slightly under. But I try not to look at the numbers very much. I don't think it's. I mean, it is important to look at, but I don't want to like super focus on it. But you are right. I was very happy about that because last year gaming we let it flounder a little bit.
Yeah, it felt almost hollow in there.
Yeah, it did.
This year, so I was able to get in on a couple of DDRPG games.
Oh yeah. Who's your DM?
Chris.
Chris. Lewis. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the, especially as a teacher, it's sometimes hard to find those opportunities to go and enjoy.
To go and play, yeah.
Though Reaper really makes an aspect to make sure that we do take those opportunities. And yeah, comparatively, that gaming aspect last year, the table was not full.
Yeah.
This year it was full.
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat, even looking for, I've got my window. Am I able to get a game in? Oh, that one's full, that one's full, that one's full. So even early on, I think the gaming aspect really filled quick.
Yeah, we felt kind of bad because like in 2019, this was you started in 2019?
2019.
That you came as not a teacher, you came as for the weekend.
Yes.
Gaming that year was massive.
Huge. That's the biggest reason that I came.
Oh, okay.
As a gamer. Yeah.
And that was when DDAL, Dungeons and Dragons Adventures League, was like at its prime.
Yes.
It was really big and it was really popular.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic, and then after that, things kind of slowed down a little bit for a little while because people were still nervous to come back. They were kind of timid. Is it okay? Things like that. But then, not to rag on Wizards, but I've heard, I don't play DDAL, but I've heard that it's kind of changed a lot, and the structure's different, and it's not the same, and so it's kind of hard to do a convention like that with DDAL and all that stuff. But what I've noticed is that there's a lot more other stuff, like a ton of other stuff, like DDRPG, but that's specific for us. There's Pathfinder tables, there's all the demos, like I'm really happy that the gaming tables have started to come up because last year we knew when I looked at it, it felt kind of sad. We were like, oh, we need to get the gaming back up. And then so we put a really lot of focus and effort into that. And I think next year it's probably going to be even bigger.
I
just
agree.
Because I've contacted a few of the local DMs and local groups and things like that and tried to find some help in recruiting and things like that. So I think next year will be a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I
That's my
agree.
hope.
I think so because as we've been talking to some of the people who initially came just for gaming,
Oh yeah.
they're saying the same thing. Man, I run games. I should talk to them about running a game. Yeah, definitely do. Definitely do. So,
especially because ours is like kind of open submission. It's like, oh, if you want to run a game, run a game.
pop it in once the tabletop's open. You're good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, because we have some not local, but we have some super fanatics of Dragonlance.
Yes.
And so they've been running Dragonlance games all weekend.
I saw Car Wars.
Oh, Car Wars?
Yeah,
Nice.
but kind of odd, interesting timing with
Yeah.
Jackson on the stream
Oh,
not
yeah.
too long
Yeah.
ago.
Good old-
I thought, wow, that was pretty cool.
Good old Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really nice. I mean, obviously he's a legend. So when Dave came to me and said, "Hey, Steve Jackson's coming by," I was like, "What? Okay, cool." I
Nice.
didn't expect that, but
Yeah, yeah.
you know how it is. Sometimes I forget where I work and how long we've been around. Because he
Yes.
told me, he's like, "Hey, me and Ed gave Steve a tour back in 2004," and I was like, "Okay." That was 6 years before I worked at Reaper, but
Yeah,
you know,
and just an aspect. Oh, you remember when?
Yeah.
Okay, kind of interesting aspect.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other classes? Do you have any classes? No, because tonight's the MSP, so I'm assuming you didn't have any classes tonight, or do you?
No, so basically we want to shut everything down by 5,
Yeah.
and so that there's no like big rush to finish, you know, prepping, cleaning, anything of that. We want to give time to where after our last class ends, there's some time just to make sure that we've got people contacting, we're talking, we're doing a little bit of kind of just discussion, and then settling in for the MSP.
MSP.
Yeah. And then Sunday, there's always one class that we want to offer early on, just for those who are only here for the weekend, and who aren't in a big rush to travel.
Oh yeah.
But realistically, yeah, you're right. The MSP is kind of the cap,
Yeah.
and then we want to just give a little nugget for anybody who needs that last
All
minute
those extra
aspect.
learners. You know,
Yes.
all those extra studious people.
Yes.
So I mean, it's great. It's super cool. Especially, I've seen a lot of people as I've been watching Artist Alley. I've seen a lot of people come up to you, and I'm sure they're asking for feedback about their entries and stuff.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would guess, or they're talking about the classes that you took and feedback and things like that.
Quite a bit of that, and some of them too are just asking for aspects, you know, as they're seeing the models on the table. How did you do that? What kind of you know, tips can I get from those? That's one of the unique things here too, of having so many different artists with so many unique and different styles. What a great opportunity to just ask questions.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, we made a lot of changes this year to ReaperCon. You know, I tried to decorate a little bit more and things like that, trying to beef it up a little bit. You know.
Yeah, I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks fantastic. The photo booth
excited.
was
Successful.
awesome. I think it looks stellar.
Yeah, thank you.
It looks stellar.
I spent a lot of my time doing this, but you know, we all have our ReaperCon notes for next year and what we would do and what we need to do next time and things like that. But that happens every time. But we'll see how it goes.
Aspect-wise, as an artist, from the ReaperCon, are there aspects that you feel there are opportunities for
Improvement?
improvement? Yeah.
100%. Right off the top of my head, I've been asking or telling Ron for the past couple of years. I've been talking to everybody at Reaper. I said, we need a committee. We need a teacher committee. And I say that because, like, I don't want to be in charge of like things like that. Like, I'll help facilitate it.
Yes.
Because I'm not a painter and I don't know enough. So we just need a group of people that when new teachers come in, they want to submit a class. I'll kind of give a brief little overview. But
Yeah.
like in the past, Reaper was always kind of small. You know, when we were small, we were growing. When ReaperCon started, it was very small.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, we just need teachers. Like, we just need people. So if you want to teach a class, here you
Do
go.
it, yeah.
So there was no like vetting. There was no doing an interview beforehand. Like, what are you going to be teaching? Well, let's get on a call. Send us some of your work that you're going to be, the content, kind of like proofing it. You know, kind of
Yeah.
like that, and then contacting people like, oh, what are we missing? Are we missing an airbrush class? Are we missing a blending class? Do we need more beginner painters? Well, I saw this person on Instagram, or I saw this person on YouTube and Twitch. Let's reach out to them and see if they want to come. So we just need a kind of an ecosystem that's built like that to kind of facilitate it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get. I wouldn't say it's hard, but to get new teachers in and things like that. Because a lot of the times, what I've seen, my 15 years of being at ReaperCon, is a lot of the teachers have been the same.
Yes. Yes.
Not that that's a bad thing.
Oh, definitely not.
But you know, a lot of them will teach the same class every year. And but luckily, we get a lot of new people, so that kind of helps because these people haven't taken the class before. But the people that have been coming for the past 5 years, they're like, oh, I finally got into Proctor's class 2 years ago, and then I got into Tish's class this year, and then this class is really popular. I'm going to try to get that one next year.
Yeah.
But then once you come 6 or 7 times, then you're like, I got all the big classes. But then you kind of might run out of classes at that point. That's my fear. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying that's a fear of mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Especially with multi-day events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you do have opportunities. If you've got a good opportunity to go and do the buttery blends.
Yes.
One of my favorite classes, by the way. But
Is that Ian?
yes.
Yeah.
When you get an opportunity to go to that one, you can hit that multiple times. But if you're doing that class 3 years in a row,
Yeah.
there are other aspects that you may be missing, that you may not be going. Because again, I think every artist would say that their technique, their style, their aspect of how they do it, it's not the only one.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to do
There's
blending.
multiple ways to do different
Exactly.
or the same thing differently. So yeah, I think that's a great call out.
Yeah, so like a committee of some sort.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah.
group. I think it's a committee, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
board of teachers, like a board of approving and assigning. Because a lot of the times it's like, oh, well, he's teaching NMM, but she's teaching NMM at the same time. Do we want to split them up so more people have an opportunity? Or I guess they're going to sell out regardless, but, kind of an idea.
Yeah,
Um,
it gives opportunity for variation. I can say, as a teacher who does submit
Yeah.
for quite a bit, those are some of the things we do. Is we look at previous ReaperCons and say,
What's missing?
where were the holes,
Yeah.
both in time and subject?
Slots and
Are we okay to be able to put in and to be able to do classes based on those? Which initially is what led us into Night Owls. Because
because there's no classes.
there was no night classes at all, and as we were talking to people, hey, what's missing? What are some things that you feel could be done better?
Yeah.
What can we as teachers do? Night class. It kept coming up.
Coming up, yep.
So it was like, well, there's a hole.
Yep.
And we can fill it.
And that's where I was talking about the incentive, like, because I guess the vibe and the culture of ReaperCon in general is that you want to get all your classes done, and you kind of want to, you have your lunch break. You might teach one more class, and then after that, you're free for the rest of the night.
It's a social aspect.
It's social, yeah. Now I'm going out to dinner with my friends. I'm going out to dinner with the other teachers.
Yes.
I'm
I'm going to paint gummies.
going to paint gummies. Oh, that's tonight.
That's tonight.
And so that's kind of how the culture has developed. So a lot of the people are like, oh, I don't want to teach a night class because I want to go hang out, which is totally fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you're right. It is that hole that needed to be filled. And there's a place for it because there's a lot of attendees that maybe couldn't get the early classes, or they wanted to do something else, like take a tour in the morning.
Yes.
And things like that. So they're like, oh man, I really wanted that NMM class that started at 9. But, I had something else. I had this Blood on the Clock Tower game I wanted to play in, or we had a special guest I wanted to play in a Joseph Wolf DDRPG game or a Chris Lewis game.
Yes.
So it's like having that option, because there's going to be, like you said, they fill out. So there is that people want to do it. So you just got to find it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And especially people like Chaos Queen. She probably looked and said, I'm a project manager. I know how to organize everything. And, is your thing dying? Okay.
No, I'm good.
Oh, I see.
I had to
Mute.
clear.
And she noticed the class that was probably useful.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that's her strength. And so it was very good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I do think having like an oversight aspect to that, to make sure good coordination,
Yes.
good consistency, quality.
Yes.
I think that's an important aspect
Because not all the teachers are the same.
100%.
Because like sometimes, I'm not going to name names, but you hear complaints like, oh, we went into this class expecting this, but we got this instead, kind of a thing.
Definitely.
And it's like, yes, so that could be on us to label it better. Maybe this is a demonstration. Maybe it's a paint along. Maybe it's a lecture. you need the committee to decide those things, and that comes down to when you submit. You maybe you have an interview or like a couple of practice sessions, or not like a full session. We're not going to get on a call and do my 2-hour class.
Some type of an aspect where it can be reviewed and
Exactly.
discussed, and because even fine-tuned.
Yes, like
As a teacher, there are aspects where when we go in with, kind of a mindset, we've got this time block, we need to cover these subjects. Is our flow right? There are aspects where, as we're doing dry runs, but I do several dry runs and everything. You got to start thinking about: are there aspects where, did we get paint to everybody on time to where people aren't just sitting waiting for paint?
Yeah, or the paint's drying right now, so now's a good time to ask questions or answer questions while the paint's drying, or have 2 models and we're going to do 2 different things. You can set up your class to be way more efficient, and that leads me into my next question. So for ReaperCon, all of our classes generally have been 2 hours.
Yes.
That is a time that like us at Reaper have set, because they found that is a good scheduling time, because then we can stagger the classes 15 minutes here and there to allow the cleanup classroom setup crews to get in and clean up things. I know it doesn't count for you this year,
No,
but other classrooms and things like that to allow cleanup and things like that. So it really helps with that scheduling aspect point. But we do have a few classes, a few teachers that will teach like a 4-hour class, a boot camp, or a marathon class, I guess, or a master class, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
So we were looking at, what about inviting a special guest, like a really high-end painter, to like as a guest to come and teach like a really big class. So I just don't know how the other artists feel. I don't know how the attendees feel about that, because I know people ask us, oh, why don't you get this artist to come in, or why don't you get this artist to come in, and things like that. But
Yeah, some of those aspects, they're varied, because if you have especially high-tier artists come in and teach, you want to make sure that, because there will be cost association with it regardless.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that the value aspect is there for everybody, right? For the attendees, for the artist, for Reaper, for the location, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
It's got to balance and make sense. So yes, those ones you do want to make sure that you have the opportunity to maximize the benefit, and whether it's something like a master class, something like that, I think does make sense to extend. But you also have to think of break aspects, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 2 hours in, we'll take a little
2 hours in, we're going to take a
10-minute break, go to the bathroom.
And then 2 hours in. So the format, I think, is perfect, because that time there. So for instance, one of the flesh classes that we do, the goal is to give the basics and standards and processes within the first hour and a half, and then the last half an hour is for them to either go crazy and try something different with the techniques they've taken, or fine-tune, or bring in a model that they've got that they can try that effect on.
Got it.
That they want to do. So I think that
it's structured in that way.
Yes,
That's very nice.
the timing aspect for me, I think it works really, really well, because we're able to take the aspects that we want to convey and really do justice for the attendees.
And that would help with the committee, because the committee, if you're going to be set on this 2-hour structure, then you can explain to the people that are submitting classes that are new or that you don't know yet. You'd be like, hey, this is generally how we like to structure our classes, and things like that. So like the last 15 minutes, you want to ask questions, you want to start cleaning up, things like that, so you don't get you don't go late.
Because you've got classes coming right behind
exactly.
you. You've got to have structure.
And you want to get to your content. Like if you're going a little bit slow, you might fall behind, and then they might not get the full amount of value out of your class. Then they might not feel like they did, and things like that. So that's the thing that I want for the artist mostly, is some kind of committee or some kind of overarching structure, and things like that. So
yeah,
I know they've done a good job. Like Rhonda has a big write-up on her blog, and that she's given us.
Bird with a brush.
That is
so good. If you're thinking about teaching, even, what a great starting point, because it starts giving some of those aspects of what has been.
Yeah.
And what people are used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
really
I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing I want to focus on
Yeah, that makes
for
a lot
that
of sense.
part of the con.
Yeah.
At least. So yeah. Oh, and another aspect for you, it's a little bit special because Ron was like, "Hey, Joe has submitted so many classes. I don't know where to put him. Like, I don't want. It's kind of bad if we put him in like classroom 5, and then he's in classroom 7, and then he's in classroom 9. He's like, well, we have this ballroom over here. We can just put him there all weekend, and they could just have JoeCon in that room all weekend. And I'm sure that's been great for you. Probably stress-free, kind of, because you're just like, my classroom's right here, and I don't have to worry about moving stuff. And
Yeah, very much so, very much so. One of the big aspects that for an artist, especially because we do so many classes, there is an element where with those blocks, you do have to juggle classrooms. And sometimes if you're upstairs and then you're moving down to
You
know,
have your
one
big
of the
thing,
Arabian
chair stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of aspect to the movement aspect that does play into it 100%. So being in one location, knowing that everything's there, you're actually able to put stuff there, you know, preemptively, put your materials there and keep it there. That has been definitely good. I definitely say that was something that I really appreciated. Aspect wise, as you're going through, for me, one of the big things that I want to make sure that we don't do as a holistic community is not take advantage of the location we have. So when we have those dead spaces, can we maximize them and make them useful?
We don't have a class in that room for the next 3 hours.
Right.
What can we do there? Like, can we put a juggling class in there, or
Yes.
a board game demo, or
100%.
Yeah, that makes sense. A swap meet.
A swap meet. Yeah, who knows?
We might
There
get
are
one next
different
year.
aspects. But yeah, I think having that kind of home location is great. And, you know, again, one of the big challenges that I know we've actually put on is by having so many submissions. It does seem like overwhelming. And we're going to really try to control the aspect of when we're putting in classes, the thought process behind that is if there's a hole, we're happy to fill it. If there's no need, that can be cut right off the bat. But when you see 20 different submissions, it's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And I think Ron is used to the other teachers, like, oh, I'm only going to teach 4.
Yes.
And he's like, why would he want to teach 16?
9. Yes.
Like 20 classes. It's like, why would he want to do that?
Yeah.
So he's like, he feels bad for scheduling them.
No, and that's part of my aspect too. Again, with my whole painting and professional journey, one of the biggest aspects that I love to teach. I love to see what the students, when they get those light bulb moments, that's electrifying. So I actually...
You're like, I did that.
Yes.
Or I helped with that.
Yes. So I love to see when there are students who get, whether it's concepts or they've struggled with something and they finally break that barrier, they get confidence, whatever the case may be. For me, again, it goes right back into the community. Now that I've got the time to offer, I want to give it back to the community. So for me, it's like loaded up. This is my aspect where I get an opportunity to give back. So I want to give back wholly.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I used to teach high school, and same thing. When you see the kids, like if they started as, like, I always have this story of, this girl came in as a freshman. She's very awkward. She wasn't social, and she was just kind of clumsy and things like that. But then year after year, 2 years later, 3 years later, now she's the captain of the color guard. Now she's talking to everybody.
What progress.
And she has so much more confidence, like when she walked into the room or when she's performing, because it was dance and things like that. And she's just, that student, I have a bunch of students like that, but that one student, it just, that activity just flipped everything. And I think it clicked for her one day, and it was just like, whoosh. And then you see that, and you're like, wow.
Yeah,
like,
it's great to see.
And then the parents come to you, and they're like, thank you so much. It's super good.
Yeah,
so.
it's really exciting. It's a great feeling to be able to have those, even if they're small little impacts. It doesn't matter the size of the impact. if you're able to have those small moments and help somebody else, yeah, it's just such a reward. So for us, because I'm able to, and I know Tammy would say the same thing, because there's the ability to do it, maximize it.
Yeah.
For us, that's what it's about.
I'm checking the time real quick.
Oh yeah.
I forgot what time it is. We got MSP to get ready for.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming quick.
6 o'clock. So 6, 7, 8, 2 hours away from the
Yes.
MSP.
Entry-wise, have you gone through the hall and done a little peek?
Me personally, I have not. I did a little bit, and I've seen the slideshow. So the slideshow has been up on the main monitors here in the main hall.
Yeah.
And I've seen a little bit here and there, but obviously I've been too focused on
everything.
Everything. Other
He's
things.
doing everything.
So I've had more responsibilities recently in the most present future. So it's just making sure fires are getting put out and things like that. So, but since I'm not a judge and I'm not a teacher, and I do like looking at them, but it's like the thing that's on the bottom of my. It's like if I have time, I can.
Yes.
It's like I would love to do it if I can, but a lot of the times it's like, oh, I need this cooler over here, or hey, where's this ribbon at, or I need this cart. All the normal stuff. So, but I've seen some of the entries and some of the joke entries, especially from Garage Yeti and things like that. Burgundy wine.
Yes.
That stuff is really cute. You'll see it tonight if you're watching the MSP.
So good. Some of the ones that are going to be up, and even though not all of the entries are going to be posted up,
yeah.
Enough are that you get the holistic picture from the entries that will be posted.
Especially the Pez dispensers have been a good addition, I think.
So good.
Super fun.
We've had a lot of people ask, well, I wonder if that's going to go forward. And I've been telling people, I hope I'm not wrong, but I've been saying it's so popular and everybody is loving it so much that it will go on.
Oh, yeah.
So I have confidence that the Pez dispenser aspect is going to be a staple.
Yeah, even of the MSP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Even if because it could be like a gummy bear thing.
Yes.
Like an
100%.
outside of event MSP thing as a joke thing. But it started out as kind of a
laughable
thing.
aspect. Yes.
Like, why would you do that? It's a little weird. But then everybody took it seriously.
100%.
Like all the artists took it super
Entries
serious.
Are crazy.
Yeah, They're awesome. Good. I can't wait for you to see them. So in 2 hours, we'll be streaming the MSP, and you'll see all the winners, like all the medalists and certificates. You'll see it's a lot. You'll see a lot.
Yeah.
But all of them will be up on the website. So the website just got revamped recently, a couple months ago. So all the artist pages are there. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
So
yes.
You can go on there and type in Joe Oakes, and it'll pull up all your submissions since 2012.
Yeah.
If you've entered that back then, but you'll pull them up. Now you'll have a whole catalog. It's so much better and so good.
It's nice. It's easy to go through too and look and see, again, some of the progression aspects.
Oh yeah, like what happened in 2015? Like, what was popular? Oh, maybe this type of OSL was really good. Or
such a great guide.
Yeah, these colors were vibrant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of ordnance that year. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of those aspects are really good to be able to have captured, and they're again well organized.
Yeah, well, so I think we might try to do one more interview, maybe a quick one if I can grab maybe Dev. I think I'm going to grab Dev Sodagar,
yes,
Raggy Paints, and do a little small interview with him, and then we got to stop and get ready for the MSP. So I'm going to do a very quick one with Raggy, yeah. So Joe, I wanted to say thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having us here at ReaperCon. Thanks for hosting ReaperCon.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing event. No other convention like it. I love it. I am excited to be here every single year. So.
I really enjoyed this talk about classrooms and structures and things like that, because I'm going to go back and watch this VOD, and I'm going to take notes and bring it to the Reaper team.
Perfect.
So that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you, because I knew you had a lot of feedback on that.
Absolutely. So. And two, don't hesitate, of course, like all of us, feel free, reach out anytime. Feel free, we are here to assist. So.
Joe Oakes on all the social medias. What's your handles?
So on Discord, it is Green Oaks Gaming.
Green Oaks, yeah.
On Instagram, it is Cerebro1974. Because I'm so old, when I set up initially,
Cerebro.
You do everything kind of at that age, and what better aspect to find and look for different
Yes.
aspects than Charles's Cerebro.
Yes,
So,
my first email that I still have from 6th grade is Dalamar
Yes.
at yahoo.com because of Dragonlance. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still have that email.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
One of the aspects too about kind of aging as well is now if it were a younger person, they wouldn't remember what their first one was.
Yeah.
But for us, because so much was needed for memory,
Yeah.
whether it was phone numbers, emails, whatever, passwords, stick with it and you'll never forget it.
Yeah, so Green Oaks Gaming on most things,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Did we just get a raid? Who raided us?
Oh, awesome, awesome.
Who rated us? We have a different chat on our screen, so we cannot see who rated us, but I see that Quindy, one of our moderators, said that we got a raid, so
Welcome Raiders.
you.
Welcome Raiders.
You
Stick
just missed-
around. The
yeah.
Dev interview coming up.
yeah, Dev Sodegar.
Negative Paints. Yeah, really good stuff.
And in 2 hours, we'll be doing the MSP award ceremony, the highlight of ReaperCon, I would say, and probably the ending. I mean, not the ending, but it's kind of like
The culmination.
It's the climax of ReaperCon.
Yes,
So that is
yes.
coming up soon in 2 hours. So if anybody just joined us, welcome. We're about to take a small little break. We're going to swap over to another interview. We're going to swap over to some security cameras. You'll see why. But we have some security cameras around the con. So if you're not here, which you're in chat, you can see what's going on around the con. There's a lot of people in the main hall right now because they're getting ready for the MSP. They're kind of eating lunch and winding down from their classrooms from the day. So thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be right back with Dev Sodegar, Raggy Paints. Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody. Be like. Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's funny because we're sitting here. My last three guests, my first guest was wearing a green shirt like this one.
Oh, okay.
And so when the screen opens like this and we see ourselves, I'm like, oh wow, the colors, we were matching. And then my second guest was Joe Oakes, who we just had an interview with.
Yep.
He was wearing that red shirt.
Yep. Super.
So we
bright.
look like Christmas.
Nice.
And then now we have pastel,
Yeah. Good.
bright yellow colors here.
Yeah.
So
bringing in the lemon and lime here. Yeah.
yeah, I guess I just don't see it whenever we're sitting here until I
Right.
see ourselves on the camera.
I mean, I think you see a lot more of yourself, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
On the monitor, so it's not quite the same impact.
which you're not used to seeing yourself.
No, I am much more used to audio.
Yeah, podcasts.
Yeah, so listening to Paint Dry
This
is
is Dev.
the podcast that I do with Mike and Dan, and I am the third late edition host, I guess.
Yeah, you just got added
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, about a year ago, I think, something. Yeah, it was pretty much a year ago that I got full-time added. I'd been on a couple times before that, and now I am the lone representative here, sadly.
Yeah.
As Mike is off getting his kids to college, but yeah, it's fantastic being back at ReaperCon. Mike was repping us last year, as I missed ReaperCon last year, which was heartbreaking.
And you went to Nova last year?
I did. I went to Nova.
Yeah.
It's a tough weekend. There's so many
It is
big
tough,
things
yeah.
coming on.
Yeah.
But honestly, ReaperCon continues to be my favorite.
Oh, you don't
because
have to say that.
It's just
You can be honest.
It's
I don't
such a
mind.
good vibe here. Like everybody is so chill. Everybody is just here to paint and play some RPGs. It's none of the tournament scene. It's none of the competition. It doesn't have
Yeah,
that
yeah.
intensity. Even the painting contest is the big part of ReaperCon, I feel, as a mini painter. And even then, like, everybody's so encouraging. Like, you see other great pieces and you're like, whoa, those are amazing. Not like, oh, I'm not going to do as well.
I can't
because
beat
it's-
them, or,
it's open
you know.
judging, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm also a big advocate of open judging, and I know that Capital Palette at Nova is open judge, so
Yeah.
it's the same style, but yeah, just everything at ReaperCon is just so friendly.
Yeah. I haven't talked about it, I guess, publicly. I just don't know. I don't know what the politics are like or anything like that. I don't know. But it's because I know Nova's going on right now, but I've heard that it's kind of like a small Adepticon. Is what I've kind of, or it's leaning towards that way.
It definitely has that vibe. Obviously, Adepticon is huge and
Oh, yeah.
awesome, and we were there this year,
Yeah.
last time ever in Chicago, but it's going to be exciting seeing what the new venue
Milwaukee,
is like.
right?
Yeah,
Next year?
Milwaukee. Is it? Yeah, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I thought maybe it's Milwaukee.
Oh, I think it's Milwaukee.
Okay.
I think. I
Okay.
don't know.
My
We'll be there.
Midwestern geography is not great. So
Yeah.
it's Nova is very much Games Workshop, wargaming driven, just like Adepticon is.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get that vibe, right? Like even I think Adepticon has it as well, where it's like a lot of intensity going on, and
It's really good networking there, though.
it is,
Yeah,
and Nova has been pushing. They started in a new venue last year, which was exciting.
Yeah.
But
Super good for them.
it is, and they're attracting some phenomenal talent on the painting scene as well, which is really cool. But I just want to be there.
Yeah. It does suck. I feel bad because we're on the same weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two painting conventions, regardless of what the feel is or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
Yep.
Because now you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you go there or do you go there?
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people. I've been pretty candid all day on all of our interviews. And, I've talked to people and, they're like, oh, I'll go to Nova this year. I'll come to ReaperCon next year.
Yep.
I'll go to Nova this year. Because I talked to Brett Amundsen, Goobertown.
Yep,
He was here last year.
that's right.
He came and he told me, this was the best con I've been to all year.
Yep.
And that really made me proud. It made me excited.
Yep.
And so I messaged him this year and I said, hey, are you coming to ReaperCon? Because I want him to come take a tour of the factory and do all that stuff.
Sure.
And he was like, oh, I'm actually going to Nova this year because I want to go see what it's about and what it's like.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense as like a content creator.
Yep.
You want to look at all the options. You want to go see what's new and what everybody's doing. And things like that. You got to see the content ideas,
Absolutely.
And so he said, I can't wait to be back. So I hope he comes back soon. But
Yeah.
that's just what I've heard from a lot of people is that they're going to probably try to bounce between the two, just because it sucks that you have to kind of, you can't go to both.
Yeah,
It's kind of the
it's
idea.
challenging. I mean, I've said before, if they weren't on the same weekend, I would absolutely be going to both.
Yeah.
And I think I'd choose either of them over Adepticon personally. Like Adepticon is amazing. It
Yeah.
has a phenomenal vendor hall, but it's too many people for me. Like if
Yeah.
I'm doing the big money convention with all the people, it's Gen Con. For me.
Gen Con, yeah.
Yeah. But I love this convention. I'm looking forward to hearing what Brett has to say.
Oh yeah.
Because
I'm curious.
He's pretty open on
Yeah.
on his show and on the podcast. So and I do enjoy listening to it. So I can't wait to hear his take on it.
Yeah, I told him, I said, hey, just email me when you get back and tell me how it went for you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. But yeah, and so I did a survey. I'm doing a survey this year for ReaperCon 2024.
Okay.
So we do our ribbons on our badges, and I'm doing a surveyor ribbon. So if people do the survey, they can come to me and get a surveyor ribbon. And so I'm asking a lot of important questions like, what time of year would you like ReaperCon? Or do you like what time of year it is now? How is it too long, too short? What kind of classes do you want to see? Just kind of those general questions. Like what do you think it needs? What do you want to see added? What's your favorite part? Yada yada yada.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
like what weekend would you want it on? What guest would you like to see? So I'm just doing a kind of a feel of what everybody giving us feedback.
That's exciting to me. I'm in my day job, I'm a data guy, so
cool.
I love hearing all of this kind of stuff.
Well, here's some numbers for you. I looked at them earlier.
Yeah.
So I have about 60 responses right now. It's only been a couple of hours, and the number one thing that people said they enjoy here is painting, and I didn't know if that was because they were able to add their own options, but I had classes as a separate thing. So that doesn't necessarily mean painting classes, but it's just painting. So I think a lot of people really enjoy coming into the main hall and spending the weekend kind of painting with everybody.
Yeah.
And so that has been the highest response. And then right next to that was there was two that were tied at 22 votes each, and it was painting. And I think classes. It's painting and classes. They were tied. But I think painting started to eke out. But I'll show you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. It shows you graphs and all that stuff. But
Nice.
I know you like that stuff. So.
I definitely do. Yeah.
So I'm doing that. Just kind of gauging because we're here in this hotel for one more year after this.
Okay.
And then the contract is up. So I'm trying to have a little bit of foresight to see if we want to move the convention, if we want to change the date, if we want to do that stuff to try to help alleviate some of that choice.
Right.
But there's a ton of conventions going on. There's Gen Con, there's Origins, there's PAX East, there's all that stuff.
Yep.
There's Adepticon, there's Nova, there's us. It's like, whew, it's just kind of hard to decide. Because you're not going to be able to please everybody.
No, it's just not possible. I think for me though, ReaperCon is so unique in that it's just, for a huge body of it, it's just a bunch of people sitting in a room at tables, making new friends and painting miniatures.
Yeah.
And nowhere else does that, right? You've got Fort Wapple at Adepticon, which is a fantastic idea, but it's nowhere near big enough to accommodate the number of painters.
That's the one complaint that I heard.
Yeah.
Was that there's not enough space for everybody, and people get there and they camp out, and then they're there all weekend, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's just a small little pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So when I fill in that survey, it's going to be painting. Possibly, I might throw in some classes.
There might be. Wapple was streaming the other day, and he said that he would like to come back to ReaperCon. So Fort Wapple used to be right outside those doors.
Yeah. Good to have him back.
And he would stay up until like 4 a.m. painting out there. So hopefully Fort Wapple will come back. I'll reach out to him. I was going to reach out to him and say, hey, we would love to have you back at ReaperCon.
Yeah.
We have a banner over there. I don't know if you saw the old Fort Wapple banner.
I haven't seen that.
No, it's right around the corner over here.
Okay.
It's a very old Fort Wapple banner with old minis and stuff on it. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'll come by, obviously. But Yeah, I know that with the pandemic and Kathy and all that
Yeah,
stuff, it was a pretty
it's been a
hectic
lot. Yeah, for sure.
few years and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
it was good to see him at Adepticon again. That was his kind of
Yeah.
first year back
It
after
was,
a while.
yeah.
So it was a big deal.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
it brought some life to Fort Walpole there, for sure.
yeah. And so, yeah, that's just kind of the stuff. So that's kind of what I'm planning. But we are here for one more year. That we signed a 2-year contract after our 5-year contract ended.
Okay.
But I was talking to a bunch of the attendees recently, and we were talking about 2019. What was your first year ReaperCon?
It was the lost year.
Oh, last year.
2020.
The lost year.
Yeah. I dialed in online.
Oh.
I took a
Wow.
Andy Pieper sculpting class that blew my mind.
Oh, he was in his basement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was in that. I wasn't in it, but I was monitoring that class.
Yeah. That was the first ReaperCon I ever did, and then the next year, 2021.
Oh, I didn't know that.
My wife and I were still a little uncertain about flying at that point, so we road tripped from California out here.
Oh wow. Okay.
And
Cool.
that was the first in-person one that I did. Had a fantastic time. Had
Wow.
such a good
2021 was. I mean, that was kind of a small year.
time. It was, yeah.
The attendance was.
It was a little bit down
Yeah.
on pre-COVID, but it was just a fun vibe. And every year here, whether there's a ton of people or fewer people, it always has the same vibe. It's always just so welcoming. You can just go and sit down with anybody and just start up a conversation, and you look at the time and 3 hours have passed, and you're like, this has been great. I wish this lasted forever.
Yeah, I was up until 2 a.m. last night. Bad decisions were made. But it's, I don't know, closing the main hall and like leaving out and going out in the hallway. You just see everybody like, oh man, look, there's a bunch of staff playing D&D. Oh, there's those people playing board games. Like, oh, those guys are at the bar. It's like, it shifts from the main hall, like the business time, to the party time out in the main hallway.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect. I love that vibe of it, the duality.
Yeah.
Because with Joe Oakes, we just did an interview with him,
Yep.
and he's teaching a lot of night classes this year.
Yeah.
And it's because he saw the whole.
Yep.
We talked a lot about classes and structure and organizing and getting guests and Artist Alley, and we talked about a bunch of stuff. So, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's actually really exciting to see more of those night classes. I think for ReaperCon, it's maybe not as critical because people are here to pay, and having everybody available, whenever for a class is, people can make their schedules work around it.
Yeah.
Other conventions with the tournament scene, I think evening classes become much more essential, but everybody's here to pay. Give them all the time they can have to do that.
And he said his night classes were the first ones that sold out immediately, which he said it was odd.
Yeah.
But he's enjoyed it. He's loved it. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
So that's one of the aspects that's changing. And talked a lot about having a committee, like for classrooms, like a class committee, where they approve like new people, new teachers that come in. We have like an approval process where you go through an interview and talk about what you want to teach and go through like how you're going to teach and things like that. And it's like, okay, cool, you're approved. Instead of like, oh, we don't know who you are, we don't know if your class is going to be good. Like, I want like an official body.
Yeah. I think that's great, because I think for a lot of artists, the concept of becoming an instructor is such a hurdle, right? Like it feels like, there's this kind of, this group of privileged people who get to teach classes, and how do you break into that?
How'd you get there?
How do you get there, right? It feels like you have to know the right person or the right couple of people.
That's true.
To be able to even consider applying, right? And I think opening that up, and then maybe, using the data, right? Gauging the feedback on classes. The tabletop events interface is great for that, because every time after I've done a convention, I just send out a message to everyone who took my class and said, hey, look, please just let me know feedback, let me know what I can do to improve, let me know where you struggled. If you ever want to reach out to me and follow up of having a class with me, to do so.
Yeah.
And I think just maybe, standardizing that, making it a bigger thing
great
Yeah,
way
I think
to-
you might see a little bit more of that next year, I think, which is going to be really cool.
All the data, man, all the data.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah. I like data too, but obviously it's not something I do for my day job or anything. It's just something for fun.
Yeah.
We can nerd out about it later. But yeah, and then so you joined Dutcher and
Athanasaur down Athanasaur, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
and they were looking for a third. Do you know?
Yeah, they
how'd
were.
that happen?
So
They're like, we liked you as a guest so much.
I
Do you
mean,
wanna
you
come
know,
on?
we had a great vibe. Listening to paint dry, actually my involvement in listening to paint dry is entirely down to ReaperCon as well. So for those of you that don't know, listening to paint dry is a podcast where we talk about our own hobby a little bit, and we do some episodes like that, especially for our Patreons. But kind of the original idea of it really was find celebrated artists in the miniature hobby and interview them and hear what they have to say. And Mike and Dan got together. They, I think, got together at Nova one year, and it kicked off from there. And then 2021 ReaperCon. It was, I think, Mike Dutcher's first ReaperCon. It was my first
really?
ReaperCon. And Mike somehow thought that Dan had told him he absolutely has to interview me.
Okay.
This probably wasn't true, as Dan and I did not know each other. So anyway, Mike reaches out to me. We sat down just over there in Artist Alley and did an interview, breaking the fourth wall a bit, but did an interview. And, you know, we carried on chatting. 2022, we roomed together here and taught our classes. And it just built from that. And then last year at Nova, just before Mike came down here, I got in early and did a weekend class at a gaming convention, at a game store, local game store, in painting. And we hung out a bit ahead of time. And that was when they invited me on to become a permanent host. But yeah, it has been a lot of fun to do. I really, the three of us just enjoy sitting and chatting, and the fact that we've got microphones on and are punting it out is just an added bonus. But also just having that as an excuse to meet so many talented artists is fantastic. We did an interview with PK a few months ago. We've done Aaron Lovejoy. A lot of the artists on Artist Alley, we've had the opportunity to sit down and interview and kind of get their thoughts on things, how they got into the hobby, how they, got serious, maybe how they went professional for those that are full-time.
Have you asked Ron?
I'm not sure if Mike has asked Ron. I think he might have done, and I think Ron may have done some ducking and dodging to avoid it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try and corner him and try and pin him down.
I think Ed did an episode. I thought.
Oh, really?
I thought Ed and Dave did an episode.
Could be.
I think it was right out here on these black tablecloths.
Okay.
And they sat down and did
Yes,
an interview.
actually they did.
I think they did.
They did. Yeah, that was a great episode, and obviously, all the more so now. But yeah, I definitely want to get Ron on. I would love to get Rex on, Michael Kleeman as well.
Rex Grange?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've had Anthony Rodriguez on. It would be fun to him back on, though. Yeah, so many
guests.
Yeah.
There's
There
a
are
lot of people.
so many great artists in this hobby that we're never going to run out of content. And sometimes we do indulge ourselves and we go back and interview the same artist more than once, but it's never going to end, right?
It's like updates. It's like, hey, what's going on with you nowadays? Or,
Yeah, exactly.
What cons are coming up? Like, what classes are you teaching?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We just had Dave Taylor back on, and he's been on before, and it's there's so much talent out there. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe I'll start painting miniatures. I don't know.
Oh, you should. There's a whole competition here, and it's open judging, so you're not
really?
competing against anyone.
Interesting.
So you should,
Just myself.
yeah, it's just you against past you.
I've only painted one miniature in my 15 years of working at Reaper. So.
That is.
Isn't that crazy?
It's impressive, but not in a good way.
Yeah. I think it's okay. I'm spending all my time making them. I'm making the miniatures for people to
and we
paint.
are all very grateful that you do.
Yeah. Just making the miniatures.
That is an important thing to do.
So.
But we should also get you painting them occasionally.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing some stuff on. I do a show every Friday called Reaper Land. It's my community show.
Yep.
I call it a community show, but I like to show off people's paint jobs, and like what's going on in like our Discord, and like what people are doing. You know, like, oh, somebody rescued a dog, or someone painted this or did this cool technique, and I show off people's paint jobs. But I feel a little bit like have imposter syndrome, because like all I do is just say, oh, that looks cool. I like that technique, you know, but I don't know exactly what I'm talking about.
I think we need a show series of Reaper John Learns to Paint.
I mean,
I think this needs to happen.
I think it will happen. I keep saying that, but it will, because I used to stream myself sculpting, because I was learning how to sculpt.
Okay, yeah.
And so I really enjoy that. So I might do that some more.
Yeah.
3D printing, things like that on my free time, making some terrain. So, doing things like that.
If you go sculpting and you learn to paint, all of a sudden, you're entering open.
I'm a skater.
You're a skater. I think this needs to happen.
Yeah, it will. It will.
There we go. John will learn
It's
to
kind of
paint.
a little bit too expensive. It's too rich for my blood. So, painting platinum is the John era. Yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll enter the MSP for the first time next year, and I'm going to get a gold. So, I'm saying it right here.
Oh.
That's my hubris.
Your flag is planted, man. This is happening now.
Yeah. It's just all my time recently has been this.
Yeah.
Like, all of this.
The amount of effort it takes to put together something like this, and the fact that you are like the go-to man for everything about this, it feels like, I mean, just for those of you that don't know, the MSP Open painting competition is very, very well run. But the reason it's very, very well run is there's like at least half a dozen people at any one time monitoring everything. And just, they've done this for so many years now that they have the whole thing completely down.
Yeah, we do pre-registration, which is really nice.
Yep.
That was an addition that we made a few years ago,
Yep.
and I think that helped alleviate some of the issues that people were having.
Yeah.
Because that really opens up a lot of the people that do all their painting ahead of time.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, I get here and then I need to stay up until 4 a.m. on Friday night, finishing it and doing
Don't know what
touch-ups
you
and
mean.
things
Don't
like
know
that.
what you mean.
That's just the artist curse.
Yeah.
You're never done.
No.
Kind of a thing.
No. Projects are never finished, they are only abandoned.
That's what happened to me when I was sculpting. Is I would sculpt something, and I would look at it and I'd be like, man, I like that. I'm happy with that. And then I'll learn a new technique. And then I'm like, oh man, with that new technique, I can do this and I can make it better. And so I demolish it and then I start over.
No, man,
Oh, brutal.
no. if the technique is that good, what you need to do is reproduce what you've done before again and at the
Instead of destroying it. and stuff.
instead of destroying the old one. You've
Yeah,
got
that's a
to
good idea,
have
so
those
you can have side by
placements.
side.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like keeping your first paint job, and then 2 years later doing it again.
And if you ever, like, anytime you paint a model, especially if it's like a base gaming piece, but any piece you do, once you're finished with it, turn it upside down and just draw or paint on the
the
underside
date.
the date. Like, I just do
February
month /
2016.
year and I'll sign it. And
Feb 17.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? And
Got it.
that way, you know, 10 years down the line, you can just look at your progression. You can line up, you know, this was early 2020, this was mid 2020, late 2020, all the way through. And all of a sudden you can see, oh, you know what? I don't suck. Like I definitely did. But now, this is a lot better.
Hey, I learned something new. Yeah, we do a painting challenge on our Discord. Where you earn points for submitting things.
Yep.
You're aware?
Yeah.
And one of them is a 365 challenge. I call it that, but you can paint something that you did 2 years ago. As long as you painted it again, you can submit it. As long as a certain amount of time has gone by.
Okay.
But it's really cool because you can see, just like that, you can see your progress.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know, I wanted to try this OSL on this staff a long time ago. I didn't know the technique yet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the same model again, and you're like, oh wow, look at that OSL now. You know, things like that. So.
You know what? I think I might have to do that with sheer fabrics. I did a GW figure whilst I was sat here in, I think, 2022. Sheer fabric, my first serious attempt at sheer fabrics.
Yeah.
I think I might have to do another one. I'll throw it up
Are you
on the
better
Discord
now?
when I do it.
You learned some new stuff?
I don't know. I've not even tried sheer fabric since.
Oh.
I mean, I hope I'm a better artist in general since then, because I try to constantly improve. But
Kevin Holderney, his piece over there of the girl, the Sleeping Beauty kind of model with the blue sheer.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah, Michael Kleeman has got a piece, a bust in the MSP Open as well, which has got a beautiful piece of sheer fabric. And I know he was chatting with PK, getting some tips from PK. So,
And so, yeah, I mean, Well, it's a cool thing to do. So we were talking about. Are you teaching any classes this year? Obviously.
I'm just done. So I did 2 classes of my signature, which is ethnic skin tones.
Oh.
And then I did one on freehand and one on how to floof your miniature. So
Floof.
painting fur and texture onto
okay.
a model. Yeah.
I see. I mean, nice. That's a good range. Like, it's not just like kind of the same technique. You know what I mean? It's a good range of like these things are.
So I try and cover different things. So the ethnic skin tones has a lot of color theory in it.
Yes.
Floof and freehand obviously lean a bit more into technique. So floof is a bit more accessible. It's just fairly simple lines. And then, freehand, you're starting to build shapes and learning how to break down images into basic shapes and go from those basic shapes up to something that's...
That sounds like the hardest one, freehand.
Yes, it is.
Seems
it
like,
is.
I think.
It definitely
Technique-wise.
is. Technique-wise, because, the way I describe it is, painting a miniature is kind of paint by numbers. You've got the shapes there that you're just filling in the colors. And you can shade and highlight those shapes, but with freehand, it's literally full art, right? You're doing you're sculpting onto the two-dimensional surface yourself, right? And that's really challenging. And so then what it's all about is how to form those shapes and get everything relative to each other. And as you go at work, you break into more and more details so that you build out the model.
Are you the only one teaching like ethnic skin tones
I
right
think
now?
so.
Because I know
think so.
Mocha
Yeah.
used to teach her
That's right.
dark skin tone class and things like that. And that was, I know people really loved it, but she hasn't been here in a couple, like past couple. She's here this year, but she's not teaching. But so I'm glad that we were able to fill that hole.
Yeah.
And that's where that painting committee would come in.
Exactly. We get nice distribution, so it's not just 300 different OSL classes.
Yeah, or
exactly.
10 NMM classes,
Right.
all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it's an important class. We've got some beeps.
where's that coming from?
Is that coming from the Restream chat of 100 messages?
No.
today?
Is that coming from a phone?
Is 13-year-old with F.
Yeah.
Madison Carroll.
It's a phone.
It's a
somewhat.
phone. It's an Amber Alert, I think.
Yes,
Is
I
that
think it was, yeah.
or a danger? Sorry, chat.
Sorry, folks.
I don't know if chat heard that, but
Hopefully not. That was pretty obnoxious.
sorry. It's like scraping.
I don't think that's me this time.
Oh, it could be from.
Is this just
Is it from
everybody getting
California?
it? You know what? We're just going into phone mode. It probably is from California. Oh,
So
that's
somebody
like-
else from California. Oh, Princeton. Okay, Princeton, Texas.
Okay.
Okay, they said it wasn't loud. Okay, good.
Okay.
It was
Alright,
from
well,
coming from your pocket.
yeah. Sorry, folks.
It's louder to us. So I talk about this all the time. I'm just going on a little rant here about audio because I suck at it, and that's why I love having Frank from Nightheart here because he's slowly teaching me about audio.
Okay.
But the things that we're using for our ears, we can adjust the volume, and it's really loud.
Okay,
That's just
right.
the natural what we're listening to.
Yeah.
But he can control it before it goes out. So he's added a bunch of effects to it and cleared it
Amazing.
up, and it's because right now it sounds really kind of bleedy to us, but they
Yeah.
don't hear that.
Oh,
So-
okay.
But
Awesome. Yeah.
I talk about it all the time, and I'm so sound ignorant.
I'm the same way. Ironically, considering I do a podcast and not
Podcast,
video,
yeah.
I feel so much more comfortable with the video stuff.
And that segues into my next topic. It's kind of ironic that a bunch of painters are doing a non-visual medium.
We are literally listening to paint dry. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do y'all comment about that all the time, or I'm assuming that's why it's ironic. You did that because, or they did that because.
I think they did do it a little
Yeah.
bit ironically.
Yeah.
I think at some point we're probably going to watching paint dry and maybe have a little bit of video here and there.
like a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think it would be especially great just for those chat sessions that we have, where we are just the three of us sitting, catching up on what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Because I know Dan is looking at every excuse under the sun to get out of painting anything ever. So
Yeah.
this is the way to pin him down and actually get him to do something, although he won't. So yeah, I think we may need to branch out. At the moment, for all three of us, so much has been going on that we've not been getting as much recording done as we'd like. But I think next year we're going to be much more on it, so we should.
Yeah, it's convention season, so.
It's convention season. It is kids going to college season for those two. It is middle of a house remodel for this one. So,
real life stuff.
Yeah, life finds a way, it turns out.
And this for the majority of people is a hobby. Like painting is a hobby, unless you're like the upper echelon and you're getting you're getting commissions all the time. And, things like that. You're doing box art for companies and
right. Those commissions, it's very tough, right? Like, I did the kind of the army painting commission side of things for a while.
I'll paint your army, speed painting, batch painting.
Batch painting. I'm a relatively fast painter, and it's a grind, and it does suck the fun out of it. And oftentimes you just find you're not painting the things you want to paint anymore. And you'll come to a convention like this, and you'll see great sculpts, and you'll pick them up, and they just go straight into the hobby hoard because you're like, well, I've got to get back. I've got to paint a tank for the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. It's always ongoing. So, I think there are sacrifices made when you do what you love for a living sometimes.
True.
Mostly the fact that a lot of it is not necessarily what you actually really love. It's the bureaucracy and the admin behind it.
Yeah. And I talked about this in my last interview with Joe, is that not really, because I used to teach high school and I used to do color guard. But in that world, when you're a professional, you don't really get paid to do it. You have to pay to do it. And the same thing for cheerleaders. I don't know if you know this, but like if you watch the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, they don't get paid hardly at all. They basically have to pay to do it.
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah.
And same thing in my color guard world. I'm not talking about painting or anything like that, but it's just weird. But I don't think it's the same way for painting. Like I don't think you have to pay to like do what you have to do, but other than the buying stuff.
No, I think that and this is for a lot of artists in general. There is this, and I think the internet is partly responsible for this because
yes,
the internet provides so much to people for free.
Yes,
that the expectation of what you can get for free has changed, right? And it really has to be some kind of like material, physical object. Time and effort and energy are not valued the same way they used to be in a lot of cases.
I agree.
And I think for artists, oftentimes, the dreaded for exposure term, which is just
hey, do this box art.
Yeah, it'll be great for exposure.
Yeah,
it'll be great for exposure. You'll get so much other stuff, but
you do it for free.
You're functionally doing it for free. You're spending time that you could actually be paid doing something else, doing this thing, right? And I think it's bad for the artists. It's bad for culture in general because it damages that concept of valuing art as a financial thing. The whole AI thing that is currently coming up as a whole other mess in the same vein.
I wanted to talk to Joe about this as well, because he's been painting for so long. He started painting in the 70s and stuff like that. And so I was meant to ask him about how things have changed over the years, because from what I've heard from Anne Forrester is like back in the day, people would hoard their information. Like they wouldn't go onto magazines, they wouldn't go onto things. There was no YouTube. There was no things like that. They wouldn't teach and they wouldn't do it because they wanted to hoard all of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. That actually still exists a little bit, I find. It's a difference between the American painting culture and the British painting culture where I come from.
Oh, okay.
The pro-British painters, I find personally, tend to be a lot more secretive, a lot more guarded, unless you're, part of their crew, part of their group.
You break into the circle.
And you break into the circle. And I think, part of that is that these conventions with actual painting classes don't really exist in the UK. Even, Worlds or Monte San Savino, which are both on the continent, Worlds travels around, but most recently on the continent. Those things are shows and contests. They don't have a class component. They don't help you learn. Warhammer's Games Day or whatever they're calling it this week, and Salute, right, the two big ones in the UK, exactly the same thing. UK Games Expo, as far as I know, no painting classes, certainly not for the longest time. I've missed the last few. So it is a very, very difficult environment for them to gain skills outside of YouTube and paying for private classes. And I think that does drive a different culture. But the AI thing, I come from the tech side of the world. And I watched the advent of this, and I really struggled to justify this with myself morally. I ended up pulling off of Facebook and Instagram because I don't
That
agree
explains why I
with.
don't see you on Instagram.
Yeah, it's gone. I have a minimal account just so that I can stay in touch with a few people, especially friends that are overseas. But I moved to Kara because of the AI thing, because I can't, in good faith, continue to provide content. Even though, you can say, well, for miniature painters, it's not really a threat, right? You're still
You still
looking at
have to
physical
paint it,
objects,
yeah.
right? But it's still facilitating this kind of wholesale theft, and I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, that could be a whole topic we could talk about. But
Yeah.
I'm sure y'all talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah,
A little
I
bit
think
here and there?
it's kind of been in and out. It's been
Yeah.
a conversation topic. I think mostly off air so far, but we probably
Okay.
should put it all on air at some point and
Yeah.
express our opinions.
Because I know from my perspective, it's changing too fast.
Yeah,
The exponential growth
Yeah.
of things, especially if you look at like maybe the start of the internet
yeah,
to now,
Yeah.
it was like this.
yeah, absolutely.
And so,
And I think it feels like a lot of tech companies rely on that, right? They operate on the move fast and break things model, famously from Zuckerberg, because they're going to make potentially so much money off of doing this thing
yeah,
that
it offsets.
it offsets any costs they have to pay in
Yeah.
fines or fees
Penalties
or
or
in
goodwill.
losing stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
It's like, well, our product is so good and so big that you have to use it.
Exactly.
For sometimes.
right, and you don't want to run the risk that it becomes the next best thing, and you miss that train versus by
Yeah.
having ethics or
Exactly.
morals, which is
Yep. And like you said, for the painters, it's not as encroaching because it's a physical medium kind of a thing. But from the sculptor aspect of it as well.
yeah.
It's you're starting to see things now where I want a magnifying glass, and
Yeah.
then you type that in and it's like boom, there's a 3D model of a magnifying
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that part is a little scary because it's taking that artistry out of it,
Yeah.
but
I mean-
it's kind of it's scary.
Yeah,
But-
I think it's I remember back in 2021 I was stood outside having a conversation about like this rush to get into digital print, into digital sculpting from physical sculpting, and how it's changed the barrier to entry. But even then it wasn't happening in the hands of a very small number of people,
Yeah.
businesses that can afford to generate these machine learning algorithms,
Yeah.
these models. Yes, it was shifting where the sculpting was being done, and it did scale up, right? You can sculpt in 3D much faster than you can sculpt physical.
Yeah.
But it was still, it wasn't focusing all of that into the hands of a few, and that really scares me.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it may just kind of shut down digital sculpting, and you go back to those kind of more textured, more emotive, but maybe not as accurate, not as
Crisp.
crisp,
Like,
or,
yeah.
perfect, not as perfect,
Not as
right?
perfect. Yeah.
But I still buy a load of those models. I still love those kind of gribblies and the really physical feeling models.
Yeah. You're right. Sometimes when you pick up the 3D prints, especially from certain machines, they're really smooth and things like
Yeah.
that. And sometimes it's okay and things like that. I casted metal for Reaper for 7 years, so I'm used to that.
It's like
Great gritty.
hitting
It's
and
kind of
yeah,
grainy.
yeah.
And that feels nice. I really like the CeoCast, the Bones USA. I make the molds for those, but there's just something about them that I really like. Just because the mold making is 90% the same as metal. That's why they look the same. It's the same kind of process, but metal is sadly, it's not in its heyday.
It's not. No, I
yeah.
mean, I grew up with metal figures. That was that was all there was back then, except for a very very flat looking plastic Space Marine. Any kind of emotion and the barrier to entry is so low, right? Relatively the cost of creating the molds and casting to metal was pretty low then. The cost of metal has gone up a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
That does make it kind of prohibitive. Plastics hold paint better, right? So there are always
really
pros
porous.
and cons. Yeah,
Some of them.
they're a little more porous. The primer tends to adhere a little bit better. It'll survive a little bit of wear. You drop a metal model on the floor and it is going to chip.
Yeah. Or warp and bend.
Or warp and bend, and it can be hard to fix those things, especially as you get more fine material limitations, right? You can't do as fine a spear haft or whatever in metal, in cast metal at least. You could do bronze rods and things, but there are limitations. I still love metal. I've literally just been painting some relic blade models from Metal King Studio, who, given the name, do some metal sculpts that are nice. And I enjoy metal. I love my pokey tools. I've just picked up another couple of pokey tools, and having metal pokey tools is kind of nice.
I have two pokey tools for you right after this, by the way.
Oh.
But they're metal.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? So on the topic of that is that if you've noticed, have you walked through the vendor hall this year?
I have, yeah.
Have you noticed how many 3D printed models and different?
It's insane.
There's a lot.
It's a lot, and so many incredibly cool, exciting things. Like I had to hold on to my wallet a little bit.
They're bigger,
Yeah.
We can get bigger now.
You can scale to whatever size you want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if
Oh, I want to run something by you.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
sure.
keep going.
Yeah,
Keep
okay.
going.
I mean, you can scale to whatever size you want, right? If you're doing a competition piece, if you're wanting to go for best in show, you do something bigger, you do something more showy. If you want it on the gaming table, you scale it down, you do it in scale with everything else you have. If one sculptor is slightly different to another sculptor, you can tweak them with a couple test prints. It is amazing, and some of those vendors have beautiful sculpts, super fun things, right? Like fantasy era Star Wars characters, not Star Wars characters. You've got like all sorts there, and the resin is super clean, as you said, right?
Yeah.
Once it's printed out and it's cleaned up, it paints up real nice. Oftentimes you've got the ones with a little bit of flex, so you don't even have to worry about snapping them. It is crazy.
Yeah, it is I wouldn't say it's the future, but because it's been here for a while. But it's just getting better and faster.
It's an option, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got now a diversity of options, and metal is still an option. Cast resin is still an option, right? I mean, some of the old Reaper busts that are cast resin are phenomenal.
The dwarf.
The dwarf. I think Fairweather as well.
Yes, Angelica.
Gorgeous, right? And there are issues with mold slips and stuff sometimes, but you can still do phenomenal things with those.
Yeah.
If you're going big, if you're going into mass production, plastic is, I think, still the way to go. It's just, there are options for what the sculpt is, for what the audience is, for everything that allows us to just enjoy more things in the hobby, which is fantastic.
The target.
Yeah.
One of the things that somebody brought up in chat might be a good idea is, so we have a lot of STLs and we make a lot of plastic models, even in-house now. And so somebody was asking, because we made a model a few years ago called Terrazinia. She has a book in her left hand and she has a skull in her right hand. And she has like a crow on her shoulder. And she looks awesome. Yep. Super cool pose, very dynamic, a lot of cool armor pieces. And I was like, man, that model would look really good as like a 75 millimeter, like a big version of it, like an enlarged version. Yeah. And I was like, well, we can do that now. But then, how do you market it and all that stuff? But I came up with the idea of maybe once a month, like let's say it's January, and this month we're going to choose this model and it's going to be large, but we're only going to be able to pre-order it and do it for this month.
Yeah.
And then, so it's not going on in perpetuity, so you can't get it in February, you can't get it in March, all that stuff. It's just gone for that month. And then we choose another one of our models, and like this dwarf. and he's going to be a little bit bigger, and you can order it. So because there is a market for those people that want those bust artist style,
absolutely,
bigger things to paint for contests and stuff like that. So
no, I think that's, limited releases, maybe once a quarter or something, do a different sculpt would be great.
Yeah, and that will help us control things like that. I think it'd be fun. We might try it. I don't know. I have, it's just an idea, but it's something that we can do.
That would be exciting. I'd love to paint some of those models at a bigger scale because, I mean, I enjoy painting them at a small scale, but I know, like, going into competitions, it can be tough to get a 28mm figure seen in the same light as 54-75. You have to go big to have that impact sometimes. Yeah. So that would be super exciting. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up here and get ready for the MSP Open?
I'm getting excited for this now. I'm looking forward to it. So for folks at home listening to Paint Dry, for the second year running, I've sponsored the Youth Awards for the show. So obviously it's an open competition. Everybody is competing against themselves. And you're just competing to get yourself better. But for those creme de la creme of youth entrants, listening to Paint Dry does a first, second, third podium awards for the top three. So I've got to get my speech ready and get ready for presenting those awards, which I'm a little nervous about.
Yeah, some of the youth awards I saw look incredible. So
there are some phenomenal entries. I'm not going to talk about any specific ones because I accidentally
not
give a
on air.
spoiler, but there are some phenomenal entries this year.
Watch the MSP right after this at 8 p.m.
Absolutely.
Coming up in an hour and 12 minutes.
Oh, man.
I know.
I need to eat as well. This is going to be tight.
Oh, yeah. I won't take your time.
It's all good. It's all good. But, it took us... I was thinking Youth Awards... There's only a few entries. It won't take long to do this. I was so wrong. It took the three of us that were doing the judging a while to really argue it out and figure out what we wanted.
So we'll probably end up wrap up here. Listening to Paint Dry, is that on Spotify?
All of your podcast avenues. We do have a Patreon. We don't push it very hard because honestly, we don't put the content out regularly enough to justify it. But, take a listen, see if you like it.
You can follow it.
We have our own Discord server, so you can hit us up and we'll add you to that. And, just, great for your commute or whilst you're painting. Just something to have on in the background. There's no visuals, as we discussed, so nothing to distract you from the importance of painting, which, sometimes the visual stuff can do. But, I think we're even on YouTube just with, like, a blank logo.
Oh, really? Just like your Listening to Paint Dry logo?
So whatever your chosen pod avenue is, go for it.
Okay, cool. Bot Troy asked, will the MSP be open on Twitch? Yes. So we're gonna go down for a second, probably, while we're getting all the cameras moved around and doing all that stuff. But we will be back for the MSP Open tonight at 8 p.m. So an hour and 12 minutes or 10 minutes. Look forward to that. And thanks for Dev for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course, I appreciate it a ton. So, listening to Paint Dry, go follow them.
Awesome.
All right, see you in an hour and 10. Bye-bye.